Hello, everyone. Awesome. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Trevor Abel, and I want to welcome you to the Candidate Q&A and Civic Engagement event. Thank you all so much for coming. I hope this presentation will give you a better understanding of the election process and the candidates that are on your ballot. Before we start, please note the exits on each side, as well as the exits in the back. Without further ado, let's get started. To start, here is a roadmap of the event. First, I will be giving you a little information about the upcoming election. Next, I will discuss the federal candidates you can expect to see on your ballot, as well as the state-level candidates. And then we will begin the candidate Q&A. First, what do you need to know for the upcoming election? In order to vote, you must be a U.S. citizen, meet your state's residency requirements, be 18 years of age on or by election day, and be registered to vote in your state. You may be asking, how do I register to vote? In order to register, you should go to the town clerk's office before election day. You can also register on the day of the election at the polls. If you're out of town or you have a disability that prevents you from going to vote, you can register using the absentee process. When you get to the polls on election day, you will need to show the ballot clerk your photo ID. And if you don't have a photo ID, you will need to fill out a form called an affidavit. Once this is filled out, your photo will be taken. After you present your photo ID or fill out an affidavit, you will need to give your name and address, and then the clerk will hand you your ballot. Because the upcoming election is not a primary election, you do not need to declare your party affiliation. Once you receive your ballot, you can go to a booth to vote. Make sure you completely fill in the oval to ensure your ballot is clear. Once you have filled out your ballot, you can hand it to the election moderator, who will put it in the ballot box. If you are in a larger town or a city, there may be a ballot counting device, and in this case, you can hand your ballot directly into the counting machine. Next, which federal positions will you be voting on? The first position is the United States President. As head of state and commander-in-chief of the armed forces, the President is responsible for implementing and enforcing legislation passed by Congress and appointing the heads of federal agencies. The candidates for U.S. President at this election include Kamala D. Harris of the Democrat Party, Donald J. Trump of the Republican Party, Jill Stein of the Green Party, and Chase Oliver of the Libertarian Party. The next position is the U.S. House of Representatives. The state of New Hampshire has 2 senators and 2 representatives. Senators serve 6-year terms, and this election cycle, neither Maggie Hassan nor Jeanne Shaheen are up for re-election, and that's why there's no Senate race. However, because those serving in the House of Representatives serve 2-year terms, we must elect our representatives in November for New Hampshire's 2nd Congressional District. The candidates for this position include Maggie Goodlander of the Democrat Party and Lily Tang Williams of the Republican Party. Lastly, which state positions are up for election? The first position is the New Hampshire governor. The executive power is vested in the New Hampshire governor, meaning they are responsible for the faithful execution of all the laws. Unique to only New Hampshire and Vermont, the governor serves 2-year terms. The candidates in this election are Joyce Craig of the Democrat Party, Kelly Ayotte of the Republican Party, and Stephen Ville of the Libertarian Party. The next position up for election is Executive Counselor. The Executive Council is also a really unique aspect of New Hampshire government. The Executive Council includes 5 elected members, each serving 2-year terms. The council is mainly responsible for serving as the constituents' eyes and ears in Concord, serving right alongside the governor. The candidates for Executive Council District 2 include Karen Leo Hill of the Democrat Party and Kim Strathdee of the Republican Party. The next position is the New Hampshire State Senate. The New Hampshire State Senate acts as the upper chamber of the New Hampshire General Court. Along with the New Hampshire House of Representatives, the State Senate works alongside the governor to create laws and establish a state budget. The candidates for State Senator in Senate District 15 include Tara Reardon of the Democrat Party and Pamela Ian of the Republican Party. And lastly, 4 state representatives will be elected for Merrimack District 9. Similar to the State Senate, the State House of Representatives works to establish a state budget and pass legislation. However, New Hampshire's House of Representatives is very unique. It is the 2nd largest legislative body in the United States after Congress at 400 members. This means that there is 1 state representative for roughly every 3,300 people. On that note, I am very excited to say that we have 7 candidates for Merrimack District 9 House of Representatives: Matthew Poulin of the Republican Party, James Newsom of the Democrat Party, John F. Martin of the Republican Party, David Luno of the Democrat Party, Elena Marie Kobe of the Democrat Party, David Germain of the Republican Party, and Muriel Hall of the Democrat Party. Darlene Gildersleeve is also running as a Republican, but she could not make it to the event today. Now, before we get to the Q&A, I want to make a quick note of the other positions you may see on the ballot. These include Sheriff, County Attorney, County Treasurer, Register of Deeds, Register of Probate, and County Commissioner. But now, it's time for the candidate Q&A. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to introduce themselves. After this, I will ask three questions where they will also have 1.5 minutes to answer. After those questions, I will be randomly drawing questions that have been submitted by the community. Each candidate will have 45 seconds to answer those questions. To ensure fairness, I will be having a different candidate answer first for each question. Candidates, Ms. Armstrong will raise a piece of paper when you have 15 seconds left, and once your time is up, you must conclude your answer. And the audience, throughout the remainder of the whole Q&A, should remain quiet, no clapping or cheering after any candidate's remarks. So, first, please introduce yourself. Who are you, and what is your background? Mr. Poulin, you may respond first with 1 minute and 30 seconds.
First of all, I want to thank Trevor and the Bow High School for putting this on. It's extremely exciting to see so many young people interested in politics. A little bit about myself. I'm a 21-year resident of Bow. My wife, Emily, who was able to join me today, and I have 4 children, all of whom attended the Bow schools. I began my civic involvement in Bow Town affairs as a member of the CIP, or Capital Improvement Plan, Committee in 2016. Seeing a need for more involvement on the town level, I ran for selectman in 2018 and was successfully elected. I've served on the select board for 6 years. During that time, our accomplishments include maintaining a level town budget, as well as settling the power plant abatement lawsuit. The settlement of this lawsuit relieved Bow residents of seemingly endless legal costs. We finally were able to approve a much-needed cell tower project, and I personally continued the negotiations regarding the Bow Junction water dispute with the City of Concord. I'm a fiscal conservative who's focused on New Hampshire's values and keeping our state free from sales and income tax. Thanks again, Trevor. Awesome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Poulin. Next up, Mr. Newsom.
Thank you very much, Trevor. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Bow High School. My name is James Newsom. I've been a Hopkinton resident for about 19 years. There, I serve as the school meeting moderator for the last 10. I've been a Rotarian for the same 19 years, twice serving as president. I've been commissioner or chair of the Conservation Commission for 4 years, recently resigned from that post, and it was the chair of the Library Foundation for another 6 years earlier on in my time here in Hopkinton. Professionally, I'm a land protection specialist at a land trust out in Hancock, working on the deeds and easements to protect about 26,000 acres in an 8-town area. And look forward to serving you and your parents and everyone else in the 2 towns for the Merrimack 9th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Newsom. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, Bow High School. Thanks, everyone, for coming. I've been a Bow resident for 24 years. In fact, tomorrow is my anniversary of being married and moving here. I am a veteran of the United States Army. I was a teenager in Germany and Vietnam, and I retired 30 years later working with the Kenyan Army. Along the way, I also worked at state prison for 22 years as a unit manager. And in Bow, I have served on the Public Safety Committee for 4 years. I've served in the House for 2 years previously, and I'm also an author of 4 novels. That's all I have for you right now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin. Mr. Luno.
Thanks very much, Trevor, and thanks you all for being here this afternoon. My name's Dave Luno. I'm a lifelong resident of Hopkinton. I graduated from Hopkinton High School, then went to MIT, got a degree in electrical engineering, and started a tech company in the mid-'90s. While all that was going on, we raised 2 children through the Hopkinton schools. They're both Hopkinton graduates. And also during that time, I served on the Hopkinton School Board for 12 years and 8 years as the school board chair. I'm finishing up my 10th year as a state rep representing the people of Bow, Concord, and Hopkinton over that period of time. For my first 2 terms, I served on the Commerce Committee and was actually led the effort to pass legislation that prohibited surprise medical bills in New Hampshire. Strong bipartisan support through the House and Senate. It was signed by Governor Hassan, and Governor Hassan then took it to Washington as Senator Hassan, and now that's the law of the land. For the last 3 terms, I've served on the Education Committee and served as Vice Chair, and also chaired the School Funding Commission. The school funding is a very serious issue here in New Hampshire. There's a number of lawsuits in court right now, and I'm sure this
That
is
is your
something
time.
that's very important to your families
Thank you very
and
much.
to students. Thanks.
Ms. Colby, you're up.
Hi, I'm Elena Colby. I've lived in New Hampshire for all of my life. I've been in Bow for 21 years. I'm a wife. I'm a mother of 5. 3 of my falcons have flown the coop. They are all adults. I have 1 senior falcon and 1 wildcat. Throughout the last 15 years of my time in Bow, I have dedicated to serving our community through volunteering. I've been the PTO president, a Bow Youth baseball coach, Bow Youth sports boards, various town committees that have been dedicated to preserving Bow history, lowering energy costs, and supporting fiscally responsible budgeting. I also currently sit as the vice chair of your Bow Board of Selectmen, and I am running because I believe thoughtful and impactful change can be made when we lead with empathy and compassion and equity in mind. And when we truly listen to the people that we serve, we can offer solutions that will lead to a brighter future for all of us.
Thank you very much. Mr. Germain.
Thank you, Trevor, for having me. I think it's wonderful to see a young man do this for everybody. It actually feels good in my heart to see young people, all of you being here today. It's a beautiful day outside, and you're taking the time to sit here and listen to us, so I congratulate all of you for being here. I'm a 12-year resident of Hopkinton, New Hampshire. Prior to that, I lived in Bedford for 25 years. I'm an insurance salesperson by trade. I've bought and sold insurance agencies. Currently, I'm self-employed. I've been self-employed for 25 years. I'm not a politician. I haven't done this before. I put my name in the hat because I have to admit, things are a little crazy out there, and I think just a little bit of common sense would prevail. I know there's a lot of things going on here in Bow that, again, if common sense would prevail, I think that everybody would be calm. Again, I thank you all for having me here, and I look forward to our discussions.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Hall.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Trevor, for inviting us to participate in this civic engagement opportunity. Civics is extremely important to Democrats and Republicans. Last year, we passed legislation that said civics must be taught in all grade levels in all our public schools. So I'm Representative Muriel Hall, Mrs. Hall to many of you, 11th and 12th graders. I remember you in 5th and 6th grade. I taught at the middle school for 32 years. I hope you are all using your home row keys. Come on, hands up. Home row keys? Oh, that's sad. A little bit about my background. I've lived in New Hampshire all my life. I went to public schools up in Groveton in the Coos County, and I grew up on a potato and dairy farm with 13 siblings. I was number 7. So that environment, was a lot of work that went involved there. So core values, strong work ethic, honesty, responsibility, compassion, and respect, and I think I bring that to the house. I was not and I grew up, I've lived in Bow here for 38 years. My family, my 2 boys, now I have a grandchild, lives in Denver. I am a politician, but I never dreamed of being a politician. I was elected to the House in 2021 in a special election, and it was special. I was the only one. And I serve on House Education, one of 27 committees, and we have 100 bills a year. Great public schools are a basic right for every child. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you to all the candidates. First question. If you are elected or re-elected, what is one key issue or policy you plan to prioritize? And we'll start now with Mr. Newsom, and you have 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond.
Thank you. If elected, my number one priority is to implement the Priority Climate Action Plan, which was DES, Department of Environmental Services, approved this last year. To do that, we'll need some statutory language and provisions and rules and regs for weatherization, pollution controls, and the like, and that working towards climate change and tackling that, building resiliency in the communities of New Hampshire is my number one priority. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Mr. Martin.
Thank you. My goals and my intention, if I get elected this time, is I'm going to push for some senior property tax relief and also some veterans tax relief, disabled veterans. I don't think it's fair that someone who's lived in their house for 30 or 40 years, hasn't taken a dime out in equity, is continually paying more and more in taxes, and they're getting less and less back for it. I think seniors deserve to be able to live in their home, and I believe they deserve to have the state cut some slack. The state can't dictate what the town does, but there is 3 portions on a property tax form, and I want seniors to get relief in the state part. At age 65, 25%. At age 70, 50%. At age 75, 75%. And at age 80, the state portion goes away completely. And I'd also like to see the state make the allowance for the towns to offer the same benefit to their seniors. I also want to see some veterans tax relief. Right now in Bow, a 100% disabled veteran gets $4,000 on his taxes. Some towns only give $75. I'd like to see that enforced statewide. And I'd also like to see just disabled veteran, be it 25, 30, 50%, get an equal break.
Thank you. Mr. Luno.
Thanks, Trevor. So back in 2020, I chaired the state's school funding commission. And what we learned during that work is that the way the state funds schools in New Hampshire is not fair for students or taxpayers. And I think probably a lot of taxpayers here in Bow recognize that. We certainly recognize that in Hopkinton. But one of the things that we're really fortunate about in Bow and in Hopkinton and Concord in the capital area is that we have good, strong public schools. Our students do among the best in the state, and the average student in the state does among the best in the country. Top 4 or 5 nationally every year. Problem is, it's just not happening everywhere. And you don't have to go very far from Bow or Concord or Hopkinton, where you've got some of the lowest student outcomes in the state. And that's where the problem lies. And that's what we can correct with good, equitable legislation where the state defines what an adequate education is, costs it based on reality, and make sure that school districts have access to the resources they need to fund it. And that's what we'll be doing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Luno. Ms. Colby.
Well, I'm a mom, and as a mom, I always find it difficult to prioritize when everything's a priority. Right now, improving the lives of people is my priority. Ensuring that public funds are used for the public good is my priority. We have a Democratic team up here that is ready to advocate for legislation that reflects our shared live free values in the live free or die state. When we work together with this in mind, we can defend our democracy, we can support public education, and we can protect our reproductive freedoms. And I look forward to offering some real solutions to real problems that so many Granite Staters are facing.
Thank you, Ms. Colby. Mr. Germain.
One of the biggest priorities, and as high school students, you probably don't see it, you might hear it from your parents, is the high cost of property taxes and the high cost of housing. As you go through your career, or as you move on to either college or try to stay here, it's my priority to make it that you can stay here. We invest all this money for you to have a good education and do great things. But you have to have an opportunity to stay here. And the cost of our property taxes, The cost of everything in New Hampshire is extremely high. We have some of the highest costs just for electricity. How many kids leave lights on? Your parents go, hey, can you shut that off? You know why they're telling you that? Because it's expensive. Gas is expensive. Everything's expensive. So when it comes to property tax, we need to look at these things and figure out how we can best change things for the better without sacrificing good quality education, but at the same time, keep you here so you can help perpetuate us and your future families.
Thank you, Mr. Germain. Ms. Hall?
Okay, my priority is childhood hunger. In New Hampshire households, it's reported that 45% of New Hampshire households with children have insufficient food. That's a problem. I've prime-sponsored a couple bills, school meal bills, which address this, and they both increase the eligibility cap for getting free meals. The 50% right now of people who are eligible federally do not end up applying for whatever reason. Pride, they don't know how to fill out the forms, they don't speak English, they just have problems. So school meals, in my opinion, are as essential as buses, books, computers, and your internet access. There's a strong connection between academic achievement and food insecurity. If you're hungry, you're less likely to focus and more likely to be a behavioral problem in school, and it affects your ability to learn and succeed. Our neighboring states of Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts all have universal meal legislation passed. You folks, I think, had the universal during COVID. So I think we need to end childhood hunger in New Hampshire, period. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Lastly, Mr. Poulin.
Again, thank you, Trevor. If elected, I want to continue with the New Hampshire advantage. Under Governor Sununu's leadership, the state has come a long way in bringing businesses to the state, and I would like to continue that. My number one focus will be on taxes, not to support any new government taxes. I've signed the pledge to oppose any efforts to increase taxes, and I encourage everyone on the stage to do the same. I also want to foster a program for internships and apprenticeships with local businesses and trades here in New Hampshire. College isn't the answer for everyone, and it has become extremely unaffordable. I want to foster alternative avenues for people who don't feel they have to go to college and end up with an enormous amount of debt. There are many good opportunities to earn a great income in the trades. You could potentially own your own business and employ other people who are looking to get into the trades. Although we are not in the trade industry, my office hosted an intern this summer from this very school. I know we provided some insight into the inner workings of the office, right down to the cost of running a business like payroll and overhead. I hope we have given our intern the opportunity to see what it's like to run a small business. I want to foster more of these relationships and help our students to be successful in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Poulin, and thank you to all the candidates. Next question. What is your stance on House Bill 1205, known as the Fairness in Women's Sports Act? Mr. Martin, you may respond first with 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Well, this is a very hot button issue, but I'll give you my gut reaction to it all. When my 17-year-old daughter was in high school, she played soccer. She weighed all of 95 pounds. When my 17-year-old grandson was in high school, he played football. He weighed 165 pounds. There is no way the two of them could compete head-to-head. Just because someone doesn't like their gender and they want to be something else, it does not make it so. And to carry this just one step further, imagine, if you will, Michael Phelps decided he wanted to continue competing in the Olympics on the women's level. In 1 year, he would dominate every world and Olympic women's record that could only be broken again by another male. How would that be fair to women's athletes? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin. Mr. Luno.
So, first of all, it's just wrong when grown-ups bully trans kids. It's just wrong. And I voted against House Bill 1205 on the floor. I think let's leave the kids alone. Let's let the kids play sports. Interscholastic sports is about one thing. It's about education. It's about learning leadership. It's about building teamwork skills. It's about learning how to win with humility. And it's about learning how to lose with grace. And it's just not right to be taking those opportunities away from kids.
Thank you very much, Mr. Luno. Ms. Colby.
So I'm going to take a delicate approach to this one, as I am a vice chair on the select board. We have been named in a current lawsuit. So I'm going to skip to, let's discuss what HB 1205 is disguised as fairness for women. First, we need to make sure that our public schools are funded so that they can offer sports programs for girls. If the Department of Education is to continue to inadequately fund our schools, which causes increases to our property taxes, eventually school districts will have some really tough extracurricular decisions to make. The other is the hypocrisy of fairness to women. I think so many legislative opportunities are available where our elected officials could address fairness for women and girls. Fairness is addressing the wage gap in the state of New Hampshire, where women make 76 cents to every dollar a man earns. New Hampshire is the only New England state that hasn't protected the right to an abortion in state law, leaving women and girls unprotected from life-saving medical care. In fact, one bill proposed a 15-day abortion ban. 1 out of every 4 women in New Hampshire are victims in need of voices because they are victims of sexual and domestic violence. It's time to step up and write meaningful legislation
Thank you.
that truly
Time's
promotes
up.
fairness and safety for women.
Thank you, Ms. Colby. Mr. Germain.
Again, I'm not a politician. I read 1205 without hearing everybody's argument. I probably would have voted for 1205. Quick math. You have 1,000 people, and you have 10 people. Those 10 people represent 1% of those 1,000. Hey, I feel for people that have issues, disabilities, whatever you might want to call it. But you can't change everything because 1% of the population doesn't like the way it's being run. Hey, I'm a short guy. I wanted to play basketball. I asked the basketball coach, I say, hey, I'm really good. Can you lower that? Can you lower that down a little bit? Because I can't dunk it. What do you think he's going to say? Sorry, Dave, it doesn't work that way. Again, I feel it is a tough issue, but we just can't let 1% tell everybody else what they're going to do. I feel sorry for the girl, the goalie, who's doing a great job. What happens if she could get a scholarship, but she gets kicked out? We saw this in the Olympics, didn't we? I mean, come on. I mean, there's intramural sports, there's other things that you can do. I didn't play basketball. You know why? Because they wouldn't lower the rim.
Thank you. Mr. Germain. Ms. Hall.
Thank you, Trevor. I voted against the bill. It's a very sensitive topic. I do think it's anti-trans legislation. We listened to hours and hours on House Education, hours and hours and hours of testimony. And it was heart-wrenching. Two testimonies stood up to me. One was a girl who went up to the microphone and identified herself, and she said, "I'm from Bow." I was like, whoa, okay, and powerful, powerful legislation. Another woman came in, a mother, with her son's hockey jersey over her shoulders, with his program from his hockey team. He was forced to play on the women's hockey team. Clearly, he was a man, right? I mean, on the hockey team. The bottom line was, when he was 18 years old, he died by suicide. He couldn't stand the bullying. But it was just tremendous testimony. And the bottom line is the NHIAA, in my opinion, is a governing body. And obviously there's a lot of question on the constitutionality of the law. And the judge herself has stated, and I quote, "The stigma and humiliation that comes from such treatment of a child at the hands of the state is substantial and irreparable." That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Mr. Poulin.
Thanks, Trevor. I understand that we all come from different backgrounds, ethnicities, and upbringing. What's troubling to me is when we've been teaching diversity and inclusion for so many years now, inclusion starts to muddy the waters. The difference between male and female bodies already have been acknowledged and accepted by all in sports. In track, the boys' hurdles are approximately 6 inches taller than the girls. In volleyball, the net is approximately 3 inches taller than the girls. There is a clear difference between an assigned at birth male's body and a female's body. The physical contact that inevitably happens in sports creates a safety issue that obviously follows the same logic. We all agree sports can provide opportunities for students. Now, assigned at birth males are competing not only for the spot on the female team, but for potential scholarships to college. It seems the glass ceiling has jumped to sports and younger females. I believe in protecting women's rights on and off the field. Your mothers, your grandmothers, and the mothers before you have been fighting for women's equality for decades. To have that threatened again in sports seems a step backwards to me. I want to encourage you to speak out about this. It doesn't make you a bigot to stand up for your rights as a female. Caitlyn Jenner, a trans woman herself, was quoted saying, "Trans women are competing against women for the long protected class under Title IX and causing physical harm." Thanks, Trevor.
Thank you, Mr. Poulin. Mr. Newsom.
First off, I agree with Mr. Luno and his statement about the purpose of high school sports. That's totally in line with the National Federation of High School Sports and NHIAA. I'm glad that a couple people here mentioned the constitutionality in cases and sex identity. To me, the statute is clearly unconstitutional. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Title IX prohibits discrimination based on sex. What does sex mean? How do we find that out? Luckily, civics class teaches us that's a Supreme Court decision to determine that when it's undefined in statute. The Bostock case in 2020, where the opinion was written by Neil Gorsuch, one of the most conservative justices on the Supreme Court, says that sex is determined by the identity of the individual. Not birth, nothing else, the identity. With that, I believe that this statute is clearly unconstitutional and should be overruled and not enforced. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newsom. And thank you to all the candidates for their responses. The last question before we move to questions that have been submitted by students. With many high school students in the audience today, how will you prioritize their needs during your time in office? Mr. Luno, you will start, and you may respond with 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Thanks, Trevor. So I'm going to go right back to school funding. And you know, like I was saying earlier, you know, kids here in Bow have tremendous opportunities, as they do in Hopkinton and schools right here in the Capital Region. But you just don't have to go very far outside, whether that's Pittsfield or Newport or even Manchester, where the average student in Manchester performs at the 5th percentile. 5th percentile. The average student in Newport performs at the 4th percentile. They don't have advanced math classes there. They don't have access to so many of the educational and other opportunities that you have here in Bow. And the reason that they don't in Newport and in Pittsfield isn't because the families don't want access to those opportunities, or because the kids don't want access to the opportunities. They do. They just can't afford a budget to pay for them. And a lot of that's directly related to how New Hampshire funds its schools, largely on property taxes. And when you've got properties here in Bow, properties in Hopkinton that have a lot of value, you can raise the money to do that. Doesn't say that it's fair, doesn't say that you shouldn't be getting more help from the state, but places like Newport and Pittsfield can't, and that's what we can correct, and that'll be good for students.
Thank you, Mr. Luno. Ms. Colby.
We sound like broken records. Supporting our public schools, our teachers, the needs of students, making sure that regardless of your zip code, you have access to a quality education. Last year, our school district budget, I believe, and Dwayne can correct me, I see him back there, our business administrator, was about $35 million. Bow's per pupil cost is over $17,000, and currently the state is only funding $4,100 of that. Our property tax has to overcome the rest of it. In 2022, New Hampshire was last in 2 areas. We provide the lowest amount of K through 12 state funding to our public schools, and more importantly, or just as important, the lowest investment into our public university systems. We can do better. New Hampshire students shouldn't be facing some of the highest in-state tuition costs. This forces our students out of state to look for affordable options. We don't want you to look elsewhere. We want you here enriching our communities. New Hampshire should be properly supporting education from early childhood all the way to higher ed, because New Hampshire students are the key to a vibrant and resilient economy in New Hampshire.
Thank you, Ms. Colby. Mr. Germain.
Even though I'm a Republican, I have to agree with my Democrat colleagues on the right-hand side on a few items. Again, not being a politician, let's look at it from another angle. Any guys ever do puzzles? You sit there 15 minutes, right? Or maybe a video game, trying to figure out, you can't find that piece. And somebody comes over and goes, "Pow." I don't know all the answers. I don't know all the intricate parts. These people have been here a long time. But you know what? Maybe I could be that person, come over and put that puzzle piece and go, hey, look at this option. Clearly, we have an issue of funding. I hear money, 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 money. So we're paying all this money and we have a failing school at 5%. Well, maybe we should look at that school and say, why are you failing? What are you teaching? What aren't you teaching? Look at it from a different level. It's always about the money. Money, money, money. But what are they failing? Maybe there should be school choice. Maybe there's kids who just don't thrive to be a marketer or to do something else. Maybe they want to work on a small engine. They want to go work on their sleds. They want to go work on their ATVs. We need people like that. We need people who are good with gas engines, who are good with plumbing and electricity. I almost wish I did it. I went to college, I got a higher degree, but I also agree that for public college education, you guys should have the ability to go to UNH and not have to spend a small fortune.
Thank you, Mr. Germain. Ms. Hall.
Thank you. I think there are different priorities for you kids. One, safety. You know, background checks, we fight over background checks, whether you're teachers, whether a private school or public school need background checks. Yeah, they do. Special education, make sure it's funded appropriately, make sure they get the services that are needed. Educational equity, as Representative Luno mentioned. A big item that we actually agree on, Republicans and Democrats, are CTE programs. Your career technical programs are a big thing. We get a number of bills on those, and they're fabulous, fabulous. We need to prioritize student mental health. You know, give the resources, the people, the money that's needed to address that. That's a serious thing. School vouchers were mentioned. I think we need to stop the school vouchers. Everyone has school choice. You can send your kid to public school, private school, home school, charter school, whatever you want. But the Constitution, we provide a public education. So the money that's going to vouchers, the first year when it was presented, it was going to cost $129,000 is what we heard. By the end of that year, we had spent $8 million. It's now $60 million for the 2 years. $60 million. That money could go to public education where it should go. And that comes out of the Education Trust Fund. And my last thing would be voter registration. I just need to remind you guys, New Hampshire is one of the lowest, 16%
Thank you,
of
Ms. Hall.
18-year-olds
Your
vote.
time is up.
16%.
Mr. Poulin?
All right, am I the only one still stuck on Dave's comment? Did I leave a light on at the house? I feel like I might have left a light on, Dave, so hopefully I'll shut that off. But New Hampshire's a great state to start a family, to start a business, and why I relocated to New Hampshire in the early 2000s. I mean, look, we need to keep New Hampshire affordable, a place where you can continue to live free of an income and sales tax. I want the state of New Hampshire to be a beacon of opportunity that attracts people to the state, not drive them out due to the high cost of living and taxation. As a business owner who employs 10 people here in Concord, I also want reasonable regulations to attract companies in New Hampshire that want to grow a business here, be involved in our communities, and not in another state. I think on the state level, we have the ability to impact these and many other issues that make New Hampshire the great state it is.
Thank you. Mr. Newsom?
I'm not going to tell you what I think you guys need. I think it's hopefully you guys will be telling us what you think you need. And I'll stick around after the session this afternoon, and I'd love to hear from you guys what you think you need. If you're anything like my 19-year-old twin sons, you care about the climate and the environment. You care about housing costs because you want to stay in New Hampshire and you don't want to live at your parents' house for the rest of your lives. So those are the key issues that I think we'll be working on hard and diligently in the upcoming session. And the last one is I do agree with my Democratic colleagues here with the affordability of education and how that is fairly funded in the state is another big concern going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Newsom. And Mr. Martin.
And thank you, Trevor. I think what's going to be important in your future is financial literacy. When I was 24 years old, I had a company come in to give me some good advice, and as a result of that, I was able to retire at age 51 from the Army and my state job, and live comfortably ever since. I've been retired for 24 years now. Financial literacy needs to start at an early level. It's just saving your allowance when you're in grammar school, right through to how you budget your money, how you pay for things, understanding your needs, wants, desires, and how they're all different, and how to pay for it. A lot of people end up, and you probably see it every day, you probably know people, they're in debt for thousands and thousands of dollars because of the contract they signed for student loans. You have to understand what you're signing, you have to understand what your abilities are, and you have to understand your limits. Financial literacy is the key. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. And thank you to all the candidates. Lastly, I will be randomly asking an audience member to give me a number 1 through 20. And I have all the questions that have been submitted by students and community members numbered 1 through 20, and so that'll be the question that I ask you. So do we have an audience member who'd like to pick a number? 1 through, go ahead. 6. Okay. Question number 6. We have tuition. What can be done to make in-state tuition more affordable? Could New Hampshire ever make community college free for residents? And we're going to start with Ms. Colby, and you have 45 seconds to respond.
Well, I just went over this. So yeah, we need to do more to support students as they enter any post-secondary or technical program. New Hampshire should not be last when it comes to assisting with the funding. New Hampshire students shouldn't feel that they need to leave in droves. 60% of our students go out of state. We need to do better. We need to entertain some legislation to make it more affordable for you to stay in New Hampshire.
Thank you, Ms. Colby. Mr. Germain.
How many of you are seniors? How many of you, if you had the opportunity to test out and go to a trade school when you were a junior and a senior, in lieu of doing the past 2 years of high school and learn a trade, would do that? None of you? Or even go to community college? That's how you get it paid for, because we are paying for you to be juniors and seniors of high school. You want to do something different and get a higher education? Maybe you should do that as a junior and a senior and do some of these elevated courses. That's a way it could be paid for.
Thank you, Mr. Germain. Ms. Hall.
Thank you. I think it would be fabulous if we had free community college. When I was in high school, I had no money, family of 14 kids. We weren't going to college. 2 years out, I'd worked in a school, and I decided to move to California so I could go to community college for free. And that's what I did. I went out 2 years, graduated from there, and came back to New Hampshire, went to Keene, and got my bachelor's degree, and then Plymouth, and I got my master's degree. So I'm not sure that I would have ever gone to college if that hadn't been available. So it can be a good thing.
Thank you, Ms. Hall.
Thank you.
Mr. Poulin.
45 seconds is not long enough time to talk about this issue. We had 3 kids go to state school and primarily went to state because out of state was even worse for tuition. I'm not sure how to solve this problem. I do, if we go to a free education system, you have to wonder who's going to pay for it. Where's the money going to come from? Think about that.
Thank you. Mr. Newsom.
If this were easy, I think it would already be done. I think as a policy standpoint, decreasing cost for community technical schools would be fantastic. How we get there is a challenge. Prioritizing other funding and funding resources we have in the state is going to be difficult. The current projections are way down for state revenues, and we need to fix that to get some money in so we can make these important funding allocations.
Thank you, Mr. Newsom. Mr. Martin.
The reason why college education is so expensive is because the schools are not controlling what they spend. Their budgets are completely out of whack. There is no reason why any college or university should pay some celebrity teacher $250,000 to teach one course for one semester and have a student teacher assistant show up for most of the classes. If they can control their budgets, it'll lower the cost of a college education.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Luno.
So thanks, Trevor. So the state's already started to do this, believe it or not. So in the last budget cycle, we actually introduced free community college for early childhood learning majors at the community college level. We obviously have a critical shortage in that area here in New Hampshire. We also have started with the first 50 pathways for programs where you can start at the community college, do your first 2 years there, and then complete at one of our university system schools, UNH, Key, and Plymouth. And come out with far less debt than currently. So it's underway right now. It's growing, and I hope students and families will take advantage of that.
Thank you, Mr. Luno. And thank you to all the candidates for their responses. I need another audience member to pick a number 1 through 20. Go ahead. In the white shirt. 17. Let's see. Okay. Question 17. What steps do you plan on taking to protect LGBTQ plus students? And Mr. Germain, you will respond first with 45 seconds.
I think it's all in place already. I mean, I sell insurance for a living. Everything, I do health insurance, I do Medicare, I do auto insurance. You know what the questions are? Those questions. What is your race? You can't discriminate based on this or that. It's already in place. If we want to go back to the Bow High School thing, again, I think there's plenty of intramural things that people can do. I really have a hard time watching girls' opportunities, as Matt said, watching girls' opportunities go away because someone doesn't like the way it's being run right now. But those are already in place in government to protect them.
Thank you, Mr. Germain. Ms. Hall.
Thank you. As I stated before, I think all students need to be protected. And LGBTQ, they have the same rights as everyone else does. And so, I mean, I'm not sure what else to say about that. I think bullying, you know, whatever we can do in our schools, it seems like a lot of them say they are bullied in testimony we hear. So I think just to make students aware that everyone from early on, everyone is has equal rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Mr. Poulin.
Yeah, I sound like a broken record. I agree with Dave. I think that the protections are already in place. I'm not sure what else to add to that. I'm just going to go with what Dave said.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Poulin. Mr. Newsom.
LGBTQ plus students have much higher rates of depression, suicide attempts, and similar issues. And it would be great to see schools have better counseling services available. It would be great to see less bullying and more bullying prevention programs, and to have them fully integrated through sports and and all educational opportunities that exist for everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Newsom. Mr. Martin.
Thank you. At one time in this country, not that long ago, you could have a conversation between two people that was reasonable and civil without having to shout over one another. I think what we have to do is go back to that civility and understand people have different points of view. Your point of view does not override my point of view, but you're entitled to it. I forget which philosopher it was that said that. I may disagree with your opinion, but I would defend to the death your right to have it. That's what we need to do. We need to defend each other and respect each other.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Luno.
So rights for all. I think that's what we mean by live free and die. But except we don't see it a lot. We see things like masked protesters carrying AR-15s hanging outside Teetotaler here in Concord, protesting LGBTQ plus access to that. We have bills going through the legislature to ban kids using bathrooms, to prevent kids, or actually to out kids for being who they are before they're ready to talk with their parents. We need to grow up and start providing, not harassing LGBTQ kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Luno. And Ms. Colby.
Yeah, I think everybody has pretty much covered it. We absolutely need to continue to fight against anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ legislation. It came last session, it will come again this session, and we need to provide supports to the students both in and out of school, as well as make sure that we have proper laws in place to combat those who choose to harm others.
Thank you, Ms. Colby. And I need another, thank you for all your responses. I need another number for a random question. Yeah, up here in the front. 12. Question 12. Question 12 is, what are your views on the education budget? Would you increase or decrease the budget? What are your plans in regards to educational funding for both secondary and post-secondary education? We kind of covered most of that, but actually, can you pick another number? Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor.
What is it? 10. What can be done to update schools more, both internally and externally? Ms. Hall, you will respond first with 45 seconds.
Could you ask repeat the
yeah.
question?
Let's see. What can be done to update schools more, both internally and externally?
Well, in terms of the building, the schools, we have building aid in the legislature, not enough. You get on this list and you hardly ever get your money, I think, to do it. But so internally, like say building-wise, give money so schools can be updated. Internet access, you folks are lucky here. There are schools that still struggle with broadband. So in terms of outside of school, I'm not sure what we're referring to, so that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Moving on to Mr. Poulin.
It's up to the SAUs to maintain the schools through quality budgeting. On the select board for 6 years, we're not involved with the SAU's budgeting, but every year there was an increase, about $1 million. I'm assuming that was to maintain the schools. One of the other things that's is an issue is why we moved here was for the schools. The 3 top schools when we moved here were Bedford, Bow, and Amherst. We're not quite there anymore, but I'd like to be able to see us move back up in the rankings and be one of the top 3 districts in the state again.
Thank you, Mr. Poulin. Mr. Newsom.
Increase in the return of building aid programs from the state and fair and equitable funding formulas and techniques that I'm sure Mr. Luna will get into since he knows more about ed funding in the state than probably just about anybody.
Thank you, Mr. Newsom. Mr. Martin.
Thank you. A well-run organization has a maintenance plan. The town has a vehicle equipment replacement schedule on what they're going to do, and they save for it with capital reserve funds. I think the schools need to do the same thing and plan for the future and what's going to happen next year, the year after, and down the road.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Luno.
So thanks, Trevor. So getting the school building aid grant back online, I think, is critically important. It's just come off a 10-year moratorium where schools were not able to get any support in terms of their internal and external construction projects. Getting it back online right now only affords just a few $1 million towards supporting schools and building projects. But compare that with what the state's doing right now in diverting nearly $100 million to taxpayer money to private charters and the unaccountable voucher scheme. We need to shut down those programs.
Thank you, Mr. Luno. And lastly, Ms. Colby.
My answer, too, would be the building aid. We also need to, I would like to recognize, Mr. Martin, that the school district last year started to participate in the CIP program, which is the capital improvement project, that on a district level, they have mapped out pages and pages and pages of improvements that cost over a certain amount of money that they will be saving for. So thank you to the Bow School District for their participation in a CIP program.
Thank you. I apologize. We still have Mr. Jermaine. Mr. Jermaine, you're up.
Trevor, the last part of that question was?
Here, let me repeat it. What can be done to update schools more, both internally and externally?
Let's go with the external. How about some jobs? You guys go out and get a job. Maybe you can get some internships after school. You're interested in something. Instead of just going and spending thousands of dollars going to college, you go, boy, that's not what I wanted to do. Maybe an internship. Get some business involved. Do things like that. Doesn't cost anything. The businesses are willing to do it. I think that's a great way for you to kind of decide where you want to go. It's tough at your age to figure it out. But I think for an external type situation, whether interns, at least be able to get some jobs, I think that's a great start.
Thank you, Mr. Jermaine. We're going to go with one last question. So can I have another audience member pick a number? Yeah. 2. House prices. What are you going to do about them? What is your view on the current housing market in New Hampshire? And what do you predict will happen within the next 10 years? We're going to start with you, Mr. Poulin, and you have 45 seconds to respond.
Wow, that's you'll have to repeat that for me one more time.
Sorry. House prices, what are you going to do about them? What is your view on the current housing market in New Hampshire, and what do you predict will happen within the next 10 years?
Well, I'm not sure I can do anything about the house prices. I mean, those are dictated by the market, the supply and demand, and there is a huge supply right now. Dabbling in trying to find out what's going on the state level, we have a shortage of housing here in the state of New Hampshire. Want to do all I can to work towards resolving that problem so that it's more affordable for when you guys graduate and or come back from college, there are places for you to stay and affordable homes for you to buy. That's probably all I'm going to say about that.
Thank you, Mr. Poulin. Mr. Newsom.
This is a tough one since there is a supply problem right now, and so much of that depends on local zoning ordinances and where people can build these houses. And how? Are they on 2-acre lots? Are they on 1/4-acre lots? How do you build up instead of out? And to create, so that's all often done at the local level. The state, however, can introduce some incentives to communities that change their zoning ordinances, such as moving them up on the 10-year road plans and things like that to be able to get more money into those communities that play ball.
Thank you, Mr. Newsom. Mr. Martin.
Yes, I have to agree with zoning regulations. They need to be loosened up. I mean, not eliminated, not just thrown away willy-nilly, but you need to have sensible stuff. There's been a lot of controversy over these in-law apartments, and I forget what they call these accessory buildings. That's a great idea. If I could, if my parents were alive, I'd love to have them move in with me in a separate apartment. But a lot of towns just don't permit it. They need to start doing that to get affordable housing in place.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Luno.
So thanks, Trevor. So nearly a decade ago, we actually opened up the law in terms of making sure that municipalities could not prevent the construction of accessory dwelling units across the state. So that is something that we've had in place for a while. But the state is still 60,000 units behind in terms of where we should be for housing, and the governor has been a no-show on all of this. We need to get off the fact that we're diverting hundreds of millions of dollars to voucher schemes and things like that and start putting it to places that improve Granite Staters' lives.
Thank you, Mr. Luno. Ms. Colby.
I think we need to call a spade and recognize that the majority of Republicans have vilified the terms workforce housing and affordable housing. And we need to get back to understanding that those are not negative terms. And the state needs to perhaps come up with the help of municipalities, some sort of holistic approach for infrastructure. We have no water or sewer in Bow except on a small area of Route 3A. without assistance from the state to get water and sewer, we can't support the kind of housing that this state needs.
Thank you, Ms. Colby. Mr. Germain.
Taxes and regulation. That's pretty much what it is. Try to look at how much it costs to build a house. Start with the regulations. What are they telling you have to do even before you put a shovel in the ground? They make it so hard to do anything. And at the end of the day, when you're done with it, they tax you some more. Let's put an accessory apartment on. Now your taxes went from, let's just say, $12,000 a year to $15,000 a year. Taxes, regulation. You guys get a theme here? Okay, we're taxing everything crazy where you guys can't afford to live here.
Thank you, Mr. Germain. Ms. Hall.
I don't think I have much to add to that, other than I agree that houses are extremely expensive. I don't know how the young families do it. When I see some families with their homes, I'm like, I don't even know how they're paying for that thing. But zoning is obviously a big issue. Got to build up, not out.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Hall. And that concludes this event. So the candidates will stay here at the front. If you'd like to talk with them one-on-one, just please file in a line in front of their name placard. Before you all go, I want to thank everyone who has helped me make this happen, especially Mr. Fisk, Ms. Wu, my family, Ms. Armstrong, all the teachers who brought their classes today, and all the candidates who volunteered their time to attend this event. So let's give them a round of applause. Thank you all so much for coming.